Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Performance Cafe. Specifically, I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Coffee Companion series, where we share biscuits, coffee, and learnings every Friday as we talk about human performance in organizations. Today, we're joined by my good friend, Abbas Al-Hassan. Abbas is an accredited coach with ACC, with the International Coaching Federation. He's a chartered accountant with a master's degree in finance and is the founder of Realizing Dreams Coaching, Affluence Oak, and Affluence Childcare Hope Foundation. Abbas has had over 35 years of experience in risk management, internal audit and external audit, forensic examination, finance, administration, banking operations, and branch management. His experience spans Nigeria, West Africa, and the African continent. He was an executive head of internal audit for corporate and investment banking for Standard Bank Group until the 30th of August this year, where he resigned to manage his companies. And previously, he held the position of executive head for internal audit for Standard Bank South Africa. And on that note, welcome, Abbas. It is great to have you here with us.
Thank you very much, Innocent, for having me.
It's only a pleasure. Well, Abbas, who thought when we met, what was it now, 2-3 years ago, that one day we'd be doing this recording, right?
Glad to be here. I mean, fate has a way of, making things happen. It's fate.
It's fate. It is indeed. So, Abbas, I must say I'm so excited about my interview with you today because, of course, we met through coaching. But you've got a phenomenal background in finance. And, there's that stereotype that people in finance don't get people things. And here you are standing with one foot in each. So in keeping with the Performance Cafe, I'd like to ask you, how does someone with one foot in finance and one foot in the people things, how do you define performance?
No, thanks, Innocent. The point is, when you move from being a doer to managing people, especially when you move to the executive level, it's no more about the skills that you have. At that level, you end up managing people, and people's skills become important. Once they call someone a manager in an organization, it becomes critical that that person in a leadership position is able to lead people. And the skills that you need, you've got them with people working with you. So it's not a big problem to make that transition as long as you are prepared for it. In my own case, I had the opportunity to have attended a lot of courses, training, before being made an executive, and it's been like that. And talking about performance in itself, performance is alignment of resources to deliver corporate strategic goals. And when you talk performance, people tend to think it's only about people. You also have to make sure that you utilize the capital adequately. The systems have to be in place to support, the people. Of course, people is a key part of it, because at the end of the day, it's the people that will make this happen. So this is where performance comes in, is being able to align all these resources to deliver on the corporate strategic goal. But today we're focusing on the people. And for the people aspect of it, it's about how do you set goals? How do you, at the beginning of the year or at the early performance stage, determine what to measure the individual by? And those goals you have to set at the beginning. And once they are set, they need to be monitored continuously. You don't set goals at the beginning of the year and say until I wait until the end of the year before I start measuring them. Performance management has to be on a continuous basis until year end, when you now do the final, the final performance. And also, when you talk performance management, people connote it has a bad feeling or a bad, people think that in most cases, when you tell people they are going into performance management, they think, well, my career has come to an end now, which is very far from it. The result of performance management is basically to improve you as an individual, to be able to deliver to the maximum, to your capacity. And it's when everything fails that you think about, well, should we part way or should we terminate appointment? But even before you get to that stage, there are various interventions you can have. You can have training, you can have coaching, you can have mentoring. So performance on its own is to get the individual to perform at their best.
I like that. So, and of course, you have a very unique view because you've managed and been performance managed in a variety of contexts. So you were in corporate, you're now in startup, you've been across, the African continent. How do the performance measures change in these various instances?
The ultimate objective is the strategic goal, and strategic goals varies from company to company, organization to organization. For instance, if you are in the service industry, government owned company, for instance, they deliver service, and whatever performance that you are setting has to be towards delivering on the service goals. If you are in corporate organization, big time corporate organizations, they of course, every business is in business to make money. Profitability is key. But some people do that through different means. Some deliver service, which becomes critical if you interface with customers and public, your service better be good. If you are into technology, for instance, your technology has to be seamless. If you are into, people management, it has to be good. So in that sense, whatever measurement you are setting for performance management has to talk to exactly what you are trying to measure. So in my case, I worked in financial industry, in government-owned institution, and we were measured based on the strategic goals. Most organizations at the on an ongoing basis reset their strategic goals, and everybody is expected to work towards the attainment of that goal by contributing in their own little way to the attainment. So if you are in human resource, for instance, or human capital, as some organizations call it, staff motivation becomes key. Remuneration and all that, you probably will be measured based on how motivated the staff members are through feedback that it's usually received. If you are in business, or if you are in customer service, again, customer service management, there are a lot of organizations that carry out these surveys. The performance that becomes a measurement. If you are in corporate banking, for instance, or you are in that interface that delivers key goals or key financial output to the organization, you will be measured by that. So depending on where you see it, that is what it is, how you are measured in an organization.
I think more to the point, what's the difference between performance management in a startup and a corporate? Sort of like, what are we looking at there?
So a startup has also got a goal, a strategic goal to deliver. As you are probably aware, a lot of startups don't make it. So it becomes critical. Performance becomes critical, because if you don't get it right, it's going to be disastrous. For established corporate organizations, they've got systems and processes in place to manage that performance. So you find that at the beginning of the year, they probably send you some templates which you complete, and based on which they set specific criteria, and they measure it on an ongoing basis in some cases. Others wait until the end of the year before they measure it. But for a startup, you don't have that luxury because the investors are not patient enough to wait for you. So my experiences taught me that in a startup where you don't have all this structure, it becomes how good the entrepreneur is to be able to manage or lead the team. And in most cases, it's determined by goals are set. So unlike big organizations where your leader or your manager will be looking to see, is he on duty today? Is he sitting on his seat? Startups are driven by goals. So goals are set. If your goal is to deliver a particular product, you are told to deliver it and you're given a timeline, you both agree on the timelines, and it's for you to deliver on that. How you deliver it is up to you. However, the organization provides you with the resources that you require in terms of infrastructure and the necessary skills that you need. But at the end of the day, you are not micromanaged. And that is the big difference between startup and big organization. Big organizations still tend to micromanage people. But in a startup, you don't have that luxury, especially when you're dealing with millennials. The millennials are not prepared to be micromanaged. If you adopt that approach, you are not likely going to be able to retain any of them. So they thrive in you setting the goals and allowing them to deliver what the goals that have been set.
How relevant or effective is the corporate approach to performance management nowadays?
That's a great question, Innocent. Some big multinationals no longer complete forms as this exercise. I particularly, when I was in corporate, I hated that process of having at the beginning of the year to set goals, continue to monitor them, and appraise people at the end of the year. The tragedy of that process is that in most cases you find that the outcome of that process is not taken into account when people are being incentivized, which can be a very big issue or a big problem. So for a startup, you don't have to go through all those processes. Even the big tech companies that I'm talking about now have done away with all those forms. They measure people by giving them goals, and they are measured on those goals, on their delivery. In fact, I visited Silicon Valley in February, one of the big tech companies. The people are allowed to work from home. They have provided facilities even before the COVID crisis. They've provided the facilities such that you can decide where you want to work and how you want to work. What they do is on Monday, they all come to the office, agree on what you deliver for the week, and that becomes your what you have to deliver. And the next week, they come and look at it again and see how far you've gone and reappraise it. And in a VUCA world, where things are changing every minute, every moment, if you have to follow the big time process of performance management, you are going to be left behind because things are changing. If you are going to use the goals that you set at the beginning of this year to still measure someone at the end of this year, you know that it's just a waste of time.
So you're so right. And that was the next question. It's like, how do we measure performance in all this volatility and all this uncertainty? And what kind of pressure does it put on managers to measure in this way?
Good question. I mean, for instance, you've got, I think it's Outlook that has got this productivity core management as part of their platform. And And that simply tells you how long have you stayed on email, how many meetings have you had, and all that and all that. But measurement of performance at the end of the day has to be aligned with the strategic goal of the organization. That is key. So in those days, people used to use what you call a balanced scorecard. And you know, when these big names come up, everybody jump onto it, where you have to contribute to everything within the organization, whether it is sales, whether it's risk management, whether it's customer service. You have to have a portion of your measurement being measured, you know, in that using that criteria. That has moved, that has changed over time. And when you have professionals doing things, for instance, if you take a developer, a tech guy, and say, I'm measuring you by the number of customers you are able to bring to the company, that's a waste of time, because someone that all he does is coding, and you're measuring them by the number of customers that have been serviced, you've gotten it wrong from day one. So if you have to measure a developer, you have to measure them in terms of what they do, what product you want them to deliver, and within the timelines. If it's someone that is it's customer facing, like I said, then you can start thinking about how many customers did we acquire, how many customers have we been able to retain within this period, and even get feedback from the customers regarding their feel of the organization and you know, the impact, the benefit or the value that they got from the organization. So it's important that people are measured based on what the outcome is that is expected of them. But at the end of the day, all these things feed into the strategic goal. So if the strategic goal is to deliver on the financial outcomes, you need human capital, the HR person to do their job. You need the risk manager to do their job. You need, you know, operations people to do their job. So it's that measuring them in their specialized area that we deliver eventually the strategic goal.
Great. Right. So what I really love is that you keep on bringing it back to the strategic goal. We can't just run off and do what we want to do. So, Abbas, I have to ask you, how do we ensure performance and engagement in small remote teams? You were talking about how different the approach is, and you know, what we have to do to keep people like the millennials happy, who don't buy into 8 hours at the office and, you know, working in particular ways. Now, I know you've recently now obviously made the shift to the startup environment. What do you do there to ensure performance and engagement?
The millennia, well, I'm working with millennia in the startup. These guys are not too much motivated by money. They are motivated by that human connection. They are motivated by empathy. You need to stay close to them. For instance, my staff decide when they want to come to the office. They know the office is there. They know the infrastructure is there. You don't have to tell them to work. They know what to do. You don't have to stay on their case for them to be able to deliver to you. So what we have done is we meet regularly, just like taking from the Silicon Valley experience. Meet regularly and set, this is what we expect, and allow people to go and work. I give a typical example. Recently, one of my staff, I saw him and I asked him how he was feeling. He said, look, he was tired. And I said, what happened? He said, look, he said he worked throughout the night. No one told him to work throughout the night. He felt there's something that he had to deliver. And I even discouraged them from working in the night. But These guys are motivated by what they are able to deliver. They take pride in what they produce, and that's what motivates them. And that's how we are moving forward as a startup. And that's what they are measured by. And the current product that we have in the market is a testimony to that.
Wonderful. So talking about that, so in the past sort of couple of months, you moved from your corporate to a startup. So you've got Realizing Dreams Coaching. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Thanks a lot. Like you said, we met about 3 years ago. That was when the dream started. So whatever you do, you have to have a dream. The dream was to get to this point I am today, where I wanted to be an executive coach and also a business coach. And for you to be a business coach, yes, I've had this executive experience throughout my corporate career. But it's important that I wanted to feel it myself. So I got the accreditation with ICF as a coach. And like you know, we all offered another course with a PhD postgraduate in coaching. That was all in preparation for where I am today. And it's been a very great experience. When you take that leap from corporate world to start your own business, you have to be motivated. You have to find something that motivates you. At this point, it's not about the money. It's about fulfillment. It's about realizing your dream. So the idea is to help people to realize their dream. Having worked in a corporate environment for several decades, I know that executives suffer, either because they've been newly promoted and settling into their new roles can be a challenging one. There is corporate politics, which people find very difficult to deal with. Even there are people, they are stagnant in their role. They are not going forward, they are not going back. This is where we as coaches come in, and this is where I come in. And with my knowledge of Africa, my passion is for Africa, to help the young talent, to help the executive on the continent to grow, because I believe they are the future of this continent. And that's what keeps me going. That's why I wake up every morning to come to work, because of that. It's not, yes, the money will come, I do believe, but it's not about the money at this stage. It's about how many lives, I've been able to touch, and how many people I've been able to help.
So beautiful sentiment, and you're right. I can't believe it's so long that dream has been around. I certainly still look as young as that day. So, Abbas, I mean, something that we have to speak about is your very innovative move into SmartMade. Do you want to tell us about that?
No, thanks. Like I said, when I was getting into this, I decided, look, I want to have a feel of business. So about 2 years ago, I registered a company called Affluence Oak. And the brain behind that was the fact that the rate of unemployment in South Africa, for instance, at that time was about 27%. And you can imagine what it is now. And go across the continent, that is what you'll find. So Affluence Oak was registered to create employment. We didn't even know what we were getting into, but the fundamental is to create employment using technology to solve everyday problems. So we are very clear about the strategy of Affluence Oak when we started, and that has led us to create various products. The first one was a Survey Oak, which is a survey website. It's available there. We established an e-learning platform, Affluence Learning. It's also there. But the big one that we launched recently is the SmartMade. SmartMade is a touch of the button app that you can use to get a babysitter or a house help to come to your house and help. And again, this was derived from the fact that a lot of working parents struggle to juggle, work-life balance. And that was what informed it. And since we launched in August, we have over 800 now registered users and providers on the platform. And like I said, the beauty about it is if parents want to go for dinner, on a touch of a button, they can ask for a maid to come and help out. Or if you just tired over the weekend, you need someone to clean your house, get on the app and you get someone on a touch of button. And it also has the ability to for you to schedule, visit. So if you want someone over the weekend, on Sunday, you can schedule on the app, and on that day, the person will show up. And lastly, we've also got a website called smartmaid.app, where you can go and complete a form, and we provide you a long-term providers on a long-term basis. And the good news is this: we have launched in Nigeria, and the Nigeria app is going beyond babysitting and housekeeping. We have added things like electricians, plumbers, just generally artisans, so that if you need them on a touch of a button, you can get them, and that is also catching on. So those are the products that we've launched so far, and trust me, Innocent, we're only doing this till the end of this year. At the end of this year, we take that, give it to people to run, and we are moving to the next product. We already know what we are going to moving on in Q1, but I'm not going to tell you now. You have to invite me.
Are you sure? Because if I ask nicely, maybe you'll tell me.
No. You have to invite me back here too for you to know what we are cooking.
But Abbas, I just want to step back to SmartMaid for a second, because certainly in the South African market, we've got a great dependency on helpers. And there has sometimes been a somewhat contentious history between employees and helpers. And your app does so much more than just help me book someone for a short or a long-term period. I remember seeing your interview, was it on ENCA, where you said, I think there's complete sort of training that the helpers do. Do you want to tell us more about that?
No, thanks. And look, the challenge that parents have had or users have had over the years have been trustworthiness. People are coming to your house, you don't know who they are. And there have been situations where people disappear with, valuable goods in users' houses. Even when they come, you are not sure whether they have the quality that you're looking for. And I mean, I've used them also in the past. How am I supposed to know, other than look at you and say, are you good at what you do? What else can I do? Get references, which they can get anyway. So what we have done in this situation is to take care of the problem of professionalism. We ensure that whoever gets on our platform has got a training certificate. So if you are a babysitter, you have to have had a baby sitting trainings before we can onboard you and we verify your certificate. If you are a maid, there are several organizations that train maids, in South Africa. So we insist that you produce a training certificate for whatever services you want to provide on our platform. That is one. And secondly, the fact that there have been cases where these people, they stole from their employers or the users and disappear. We insist that you get a police report, a police clearance. So a police clearance is compulsory before we can activate you on the system. Of course, we get things like references and also ID. And if you are not a South African, for instance, you have to have a work permit or asylum certificate for us to onboard you on the platform. So we bring in professionalism into this business. We're giving people pride in what they do. Those days when you're looking for a babysitter, a house help, someone is probably looking forward to see a granny, showing up at your door. No, these are, in fact, there are some students on the platform. These are people that are tech savvy because you have to upload the app on your phone, and you have to be activated, and you have to be conversant with the use of phone for you to be able to get there. So we have tried to manage the risk coming from an audit background. I use that my experience to ensure that the risk is properly managed so that users can have peace of mind.
That is amazing. And then, of course, once I've worked with someone, I can always go back and I say, please, can I have so-and-so again because I worked well with them?
Definitely, you can.
Oh, wonderful. Is this like Uber for helpers?
I didn't want to use that because I didn't want to use that word. This is Uber for house help. So, in fact, our pay line is your house assistant. So we're trying to provide for you whatever you need on a touch of button. And Uber is exactly how Uber works. Touch of a button, within a few minutes or a few seconds, the driver shows up and you are on your way. That is what this app is doing. And one thing I must say again here, Innocent, this app was developed by South Africans and Nigerians. When we were doing it, we got quotes from Indian and US, and we decided it's going to be made in Africa. So that app was done and developed by South Africans and Nigerians developers.
Oh, wonderful. Africans for Africa. And is there a way of rating the helpers as well, or is that not part of the process?
A very good question. So when the provider completes the job, they end the job, and you can pay either by cash or by card. Any of them we accept. So when they end the job, the app will ask you to rate the provider. They are 5 stars. You give them the stars, there's room for comment. And vice versa, the provider rates the user. Because if you maltreat them, we also want to know. And if that feedback is consistent, we might even take the user off the platform. Similarly, if the feedback we are getting from users on a particular provider is negative, we take them off the platform.
Really a win-win for everyone. So it's not for someone against someone. It's really just equalizing the playing field so that you've got the best of everyone working together.
Correct. That is what it is. And you must use it if you haven't. For first-time user, you have 3 hours free. So get on the platform, you don't have to pay anything.
Wonderful. We must get this out before Christmas. I'm sure there are a couple of homes that everyone would like to keep nice and clean with the December holidays coming up.
Right.
I just wanted to ask you a bit about Affluent's Childcare Hope Foundation as well. If I remember, this was something we spoke about quite a while ago, where you were actually doing charitable work in Nigeria, if I remember correctly.
That is very correct, Innocent. I've been very passionate about people, and combining that with my work was going to be very difficult. So because of that, I decided to register an NGO, NPO in Nigeria. And we've been giving a scholarship for over 10 years now. And it's basically empowering, the youth to be able to take care of themselves. Because I personally am a product of education, and I value education very much. If Africa is going to take a quantum leap, it's education that will take us there. So that has been running in Nigeria. And when I came to South Africa about 6 years ago, About 3 years ago, we registered Affluence Childcare Hub also here in South Africa. And we've done a lot of work. We've provided, we provide shoes to indigent that are unable to afford them, especially during winter period. We also provide a blanket during winter, just to support, youth, kids who are unable to maybe afford education, or wherever we can help to help. So that I'm very passionate about.
That is amazing. And the fact that you've done it in 2 different countries already. So, Abbas, it seems like you have left corporate to change the world for us, because I think SmartMade is such an interesting concept, and it is so timeless for so many reasons in our country. And then, of course, the lovely charitable work you do, and then also your Survey Oak, which I've also played around with, which is another great product. But in order to get all of this done, you must be incredibly busy and very productive. Do you want to share your favorite productivity tip with us?
Productivity tips. And you will have also experienced this, Innocent. When you work for yourself, the motivation is just there. When you work for other people, you get to the office and you're looking at time. When am I going to go home? That disappears, completely. And productivity is working through the night if you have to. And I know there have been occasions where you told me, look, I've been trying to deliver on this presentation. I worked through the night. And the beauty about it is you don't even feel it. You enjoy what you do. And that keeps driving. You want to wake up in the morning and say, yeah, it's another day. Let's do it. So it's about that motivation, internal motivation. Now, it's not someone saying, I'll pay you so much to do this work. It's you telling yourself, this is my passion, this is what I want to do. Even in some cases, if you're not being paid or you're not getting money, you just want to do it. That is the driving force at this point in time.
Oh, wonderful. So it's all intrinsic motivation. And for those people who can't work for themselves and don't have intrinsic motivation, what tip do you have for them?
So there is one principle that I've always had very high in my working career, Innocent, is the fact that the way that you work for other people is the way that you work for yourself. If you treated the work of your employer as just any other thing, that is how you are going to treat your own work when it comes to your turn. So I always encourage people to put in their best wherever they are. If you don't want to do it, get out of it and go and do something else that makes you want to do what you want to do. But if you're working for an employer, you better be good at what you do. That is very important. The other thing that I always encourage people to do is the fact that someday, at some point, we all have to leave our employer. Find something that you are passionate about. While you are working for your employer, do that, what they call side hustle now. Do that by the side in such a way that you might even find out that will make you more productive. Because you're fulfilling your own personal goals, trying to align that with the organizational goals. So if you find that calling, that motivation, do it little by little, and you might find out that even that will help you in your workplace. The fact that you are motivated will also motivate you to do the work of your employer.
So I hear a lot of almost integrity and authenticity in there, right?
Correct. Interestingly, integrity is one of my personal values.
There you go. And this I know because I've known you long enough. Actually, it's so interesting. Sorry, Abbas. You've just set my head thinking now, because so often when I speak about productivity and performance in companies, and people say, how do I get someone to buy into my company so that what they do becomes that important? And you've just given me, I mean, there's a variety of ways that we do it in practice, but you've given me such a good, different perspective that says, I'm going to make it my own for my own sake, not for the sake of the business and for the sake of my integrity. I love that perspective. Thank you for sharing. That's very important. Thank you so much.
It's interesting that you picked that up. Because aligning your personal value with corporate value is very key. It's very important. If you don't enjoy what you do, find something else. There must be something that you love. What you must not do is work for an employer and grudgingly, if I can use that word, work with an employer and you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like going to work. You're not helping yourself, you're not helping the organization. You should be able to wake up in the morning and say, it's another day, I'm going to make my own contribution to the organization. And in that process, you grow yourself, equip yourself for this time, like I am now, using all the skills that you have acquired. But what you cannot do is not like the job you are doing and not delivering good to your employer. In that process, you also damaging yourself in some way.
If it would be lovely, could you expand how you've seen that damage show up in human lives?
Yeah, it can be tragic, Innocent. These are the people that come to work every day and tell you how terrible the organization is. They don't see anything good in the organization. They are the ones that will come and start gossiping about every other person. They hear the latest news in the organization, and that is usually the bad news, not the good one. When you see people like that, you know that, no, this one doesn't belong here. You know, they are in the wrong place. And if you can advise them, just tell them to just go and try and do something else. Because you can't be working for an employer and at the same time trying to destroy that organization. You are indirectly destroying yourself.
That's profound, and that is so true, because you basically, saying, I'm aligned to these people, but I don't believe in them. Well, it doesn't say much for you either. So that's brilliant. Abbas, thank you so much. It's been so great to chat to you. If anyone would like to reach out to you about the SmartMate initiative or any of your other initiatives, I'm going to post in the YouTube channel on the session notes. I'll include your LinkedIn. And then can I use this email address?
Yes, please.
Perfect. So I will post info@rdc.global for your email address. I'll include your LinkedIn, and I will include the links to your smartmate.app website as well, so people can go and check that out.
Thank you, Innocent. You are doing a great job. Please keep it up. You don't know how many people are benefiting from what you do. Trust me, I watch these videos. I'm sure you saw my comment on the last one. I watched it from the beginning till the end of it. So please just continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Abbas. Appreciate the high praise. I really, really appreciate it.
Okay.
Pleasure. Goodbye. Well, as always, another great guest, and just love the way that Abbas keeps on pulling through that. Whatever we do in the business, whatever we want from performance, if it's not aligned strategically to what the business needs, well, then we are in trouble. Also exciting how many people we see leaving corporate, going into startup now, and startups, and we see what they consider and how they take a look at performance. So thank you again for joining us this Friday. I look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday. Who knows what we'll be talking about, but it will be a solo visit. So it's just you and I. And then I'll see you after the weekend.